6 o'clock, just barely, but it's 6 o'clock. And it's time for the regular meeting of council, March 13th, 2025. And we begin with a moment of silence and pledge of allegiance to the flag by the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor Schultz. I'll keep this brief tonight, but in our world of, extra polarization, I think that we get so wrapped up in things that we forget the humanness in people. And some of the folks that I think we all have some sort of memory and experience with are our teachers. And so they were a big impact in our lives and our children's lives. And so I just want to have you not think about the news and the cycle of information like that. I want you to think about those human beings that may have an impact on you, or maybe you did something special for your own child, and just bring the human part of this back into reality. So. And now the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Secretary, the roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Landis.
Here.
Ms. Mellon.
Here.
Ms. Carey.
Here.
Ms. Bruce.
Here.
Mr. Shiles.
Here.
Mr. Stubbe.
Here.
Mayor Schultz.
Here. Next up is the opportunity for citizens and visitors to be heard. To start, we have a presentation with a very large check from our friends at AmVets. Chief Landis, I assume you'll lead this up and go up to the podium along with the folks from AmVets.
We like money. Mr. Mayor, members of Borough Council, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite our AmVets veterans up to make a presentation. Along with this presentation, to make it very honest, we have our newest canine officer here in the audience today, Officer Joe Tadero, who is also, by the way, Officer of the Year. Joe, would you mind coming? Mr. Mayor, would you like to stand up for a picture? Anywhere you'd like. Go,
Right in here between these two. Want to step in front of the podium? That'd be better.
come over here.
Please.
Stole my name off. They will. Not me, I'm afraid of dogs. Thank you very much. To to the AMVETs, before you leave, what makes Carlisle a fantastic community and a safe place to live, work, and visit are citizens like you. Thank you for your service, and also thank you for your donation.
Okay, we'll move along. So next is an opportunity for any citizens to be heard who weren't scheduled previously. You can come on up to the podium if you have any remarks, comments about issues facing borough government. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, Council, everyone. Good evening. My name is Don Smith, 350 H Street. H Street is remarkable in the sense that it's a hill. At the bottom is Desperate Times. At the top is the industrial pool. I'm familiar with the corridor. H Street is remarkable also in the sense that local students walk to school along H Street. North Middleton Township students are bused through H Street. H Street has an international food market now. Some of our neighbors are international. There's multi-luxury housing being built on H Street. H Street is 36 feet wide. We park on each side of the street. It's two-way traffic. The complaint I hear is speeding. Franklin Street, 36 feet wide, by the hill, by the pool, speeding. Spring Road, I measured to be 36 feet. Me, I'm a bicyclist right now. I run all my errands on a bicycle, groceries, backpacking. I don't have much trouble. I've gotten used to it. I feel pretty good. I don't have a problem riding a bicycle through Carlisle, and I don't have a problem with bike lanes. I walk sometimes to stretch my muscles out. It's nice to go through town. I like the new parking meters that you got rid of and the new kiosk or whatever that you do. I haven't driven in a while because my vehicle isn't running right now, but I do have a driver's license. So I'm interested in transportation and mobility. And so as I ride through Carlisle and I'm going up East Street and it's two-way, and then the curbing there bumps me up Bedford Street. Bedford Street is narrow there, it's 32 feet. East Street is 38 feet. So I think if we were to make a couple of the streets in Carlisle that are now one-way into two-way, we would recover a couple of the travel lanes that we lost with the road diet. Also, with the one-way streets as they're laid out, it induces people to pass, so you will have speeding. If it were two-way traffic, I think that eliminates that a little bit. But the problem all through town is speeding. That's the main concern I hear from everyone. I've heard from people on the street that they like their one-way street, but you know, we are used to two-way streets and it would not be difficult to get used to. And congestion seems to be a problem in the borough. I think if we change those streets to two-way, it would help us with congestion. I also have an idea with back up on 81 or 76, if we could use Claremont Road and Newville Road as they connect with North Street and Lowther Street as a bypass for trucking to get through town, as opposed to clogging up Route 11. Furthermore, I think we could use a commuter rail station in town. What could be more exciting or more productive for the community to have an additional avenue of transportation that we could all benefit from? The railway seems relatively idle to me from what it was when I was a child. You know, can we use it more? Can it be more useful to us? So they're just a couple of my ideas. I know that you have some ideas of your own, but I think we're wasting some very valuable streets in Carlisle trying to convert them into things. I like wide streets. For instance, I live on H, but I just noticed C and D, they're 36 feet as well. Until you get to the TIF development, they're 38. Nice. 38-foot street, two-way parking. Let's do that to East Street. Let's do that to most of Bedford Street, except the narrow 32-foot section, keep that one way. I think many people could benefit from, at least let's do a traffic study before we start, putting in more curbing. Paint a double yellow line down East Street. Look at it. I think it could help us all. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time and your service.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
And what a dynamic community we have, by the way. I don't need anybody to list 5 things they did last week. I just want people to think about what they want next. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. And you identify the issues very, very well. The traffic engineering isn't quite on the mark, but we are working on those corridors. I'd really recommend to you a book. It's called Confessions of a Recovering Traffic Engineer. If you can find that, it's an excellent book. It's a good read. Confessions of a Recovering Traffic Engineer. You'll enjoy it. I promise you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anyone else? And do we have anybody by Zoom? No hands up. Okay. Move on to the consent agenda. This is a list of routine items which do not appear to be controversial in nature and which probably do not require additional discussion. It can be acted on by one motion in their current form. If discussion is desired on any particular item, any member of council or the public may request the item be removed from the consent agenda, and that item will be considered separately. Is there anybody requesting that an item be removed? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Deputy Mayor. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Stuvey. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. And the motion carries. And that takes care of all the items through page 3 of the agenda. Next up is the regular agenda. There are no tabled, continued, and recurring items. Under my report, a couple of issues. One, there was a discussion last meeting on having council members have the opportunity to bring forth items under the report. My recollection that there was that toward the beginning of our agenda in our in our rules of order, it was spelled out that there would be reports from other elected officials. So I think council has the rules of order, had them in the green book. We can continue as it is, as it's spelled out on this agenda, or we can bring those items up earlier in the agenda. I just wanted to float that out there. Just a reminder of the rules of order that we have. Is there anybody who wants to change things up from what we have tonight, or we're good the way things are? We're good? Okay. All right, we'll move on then. I have a proclamation that I'll be presenting. I thought, oh, there's Maddie. Hi, Maddie. How are you? You want to join me at the podium? So for those who aren't aware, this is a Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And Maddie Young from the YWCA, an organization that is an advocate on behalf of victims of sexual assault, is here with us this evening. So we've put together a proclamation to recognize the importance of this month. I know a number of people's lives have been touched by sexual assault. It's a crucial issue that also often uh, lives in silence. So I proclaim as follows. Whereas sexual assault is a pervasive issue that affects individuals of all ages, genders, races, and backgrounds, causing profound physical, emotional, and psychological harm. And whereas it is essential to create a safe and supportive environment where survivors of sexual assault feel empowered to speak out and seek help without fear of stigma or retribution. And whereas education and awareness are critical components in preventing sexual assault and fostering a culture of respect, consent, and accountability. And whereas the Borough of Carlisle and the Carlisle YWCA have partnered in solidarity to recognize Sexual Assault Awareness Month and the importance of honoring the strength and resilience of survivors, advocating for their rights, and working towards ending all forms of sexual violence. And whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month is dedicated to raising awareness about sexual assault, supporting survivors, and promoting prevention efforts. Now, therefore, I, Sean Schultz, Mayor of Carlisle, do hereby proclaim April 2025 as Sexual Assault Awareness Month to raise awareness of sexual assault and call all community members to join in supporting survivors and promote a culture of respect, consent, and inclusivity. Maddie, thank you for doing this work.
Thank you, Mayor Schultz and Borough Council. April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, and the YWCA in Carlisle provides the sexual assault, rape crisis, and human trafficking work for the county. Last year we had 628 new rape cases and 312 victims and survivors that continued their service with us. This is a problem in our area, and it does impact many families. It impacts many children. 57% of our caseload last year were children that were referred to us from children and youth. We have an amazing community and network of services. We work very cooperatively with Carlisle PD. Chief and all of the officers are amazing to work with. We work closely with the district attorney's office and children and youth. Our advocates respond to all of the emergency rooms in the county. They also work cooperatively with the court system right down the street. And we're always available with a confidential service for anybody that needs to step up and talk with us. We also provide the 24-hour crisis hotline to the county. And we have Friday 9 crisis calls during the day and 2 hospital calls during the night between the hours of 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. We appreciate the borough recognizing the work that goes on with our advocates, and we appreciate all of the services that exist in this area, like Chief himself, who will always step up and offer a hand to somebody that needs help. So thank you, Mayor. And April 22nd at Comfort Suites downtown at 12 noon, we will be doing a lunch and learn session on human trafficking versus human smuggling, because everybody understands human trafficking to be connected to our road system in this area. But the majority of trafficking victims that we see in our area are coming from familial trafficking or trafficking amongst boyfriends, girlfriends, and people that you know. So join us. You can check out the YW site, but join us on the 22nd to learn more about what's happening here with us locally. Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate it, and thank you to Borough Council.
Thank you. Next is reports from committees, budget and finance.
Thank you, Mayor Schultz. I have two items for this evening. My first item, I make the motion that Borough Council retroactively approve a total care support contract with Hinton and Associates for information technology network support for a 1-year period effective January 1st, 2025, subject to the Borough Solicitor's satisfactory review and approval.
Deputy Mayor makes a motion to approve the total care support contract with Hinton and Associates. I second that motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
And I make the motion that Borough Council approve the participation in the Keystone Purchasing Network for the purposes of bidding and awarding a vehicle fuel contract for the period July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026.
Deputy Mayor makes a motion to approve the participation in the Keystone Purchasing Network for purposes of bidding and awarding a vehicle fuel contract. I'll second that motion. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
And that completes my report.
Thank you. Economic Development.
I have one item on the agenda tonight. I make a motion that council authorize the drafting and advertising of an ordinance to enter into an agreement by and between the Downtown Carlisle Association and the Borough of Carlisle, retroactive to January 1st, 2025 through December 31st, 2025.
Council Perry makes a motion to authorize the drafting and advertising of an ordinance to enter into our annual agreement with the Downtown Carlisle Association. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Stubbe. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. And the motion carries.
That's everything.
Parks and Recreation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a number of things to report on this evening. I make a motion that Borough Council may consider entering into an agreement with the Carlisle Area Pickleball Association to install a new central pedestrian gate on a portion of existing fencing that encloses the pickleball courts, install a new fence with pedestrian gaps adjacent to the new pedestrian gate, relocate the existing southwest gate to the southeast corner of the east side gate, close the previous southwest gate, and repair other existing gates back to full function at Latour Park.
Council Roos makes a motion to fix a bunch of gates and move things around the pickleball at Latour Park. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Mellon. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
Thank you. I think that was my most complicated.
It gets easier from here on out.
I make a motion that Borough Council may approve Hook Services, Inc. to replace the roof of Gym 1 at the Stewart Community Center for $145,800 through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Cooperative Purchasing Plan, co-stars number 122594.
Councilor Roos makes a motion to approve contract with, I'm going to go with Houk Services, and one of them will be right, to replace the roof of the gym at Stewart Community Center. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Mellon. All those, call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
Thank you. I make a motion that Borough Council may consider a resolution that shall amend Resolution 1010-2019-01, establishing fees for mobile food vending permits for the purpose of amending fees specific to mobile food vending permits issued at Borough Parks.
Councilor Roos makes a motion to amend the resolution establishing fees for mobile food vending permits. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Mellon. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay, and the motion carries.
Thank you. I make a motion that Borough Council may approve the installation of a basics learning trail at Valley Meadows Park. Funds for the project, including installation and maintenance, will come from the United Way of Carlisle and Cumberland County.
Councilor Roos makes a motion to approve the installation of a basics learning trail at Valley Meadows Park. This, of course, involves the United Way, and we have the executive director of the United Way up here with us. I understand you'll need to recuse yourself from this vote. We'll note the recusal. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Perry. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Thank you. And lastly, I make a motion that Borough Council may enter into a cooperative service agreement with the United States Department of Agriculture, Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, Wildlife Services, USDA, APHIS, and WS for an integrated vulture damage management program in the amount of $24,965.47, subject to the Borough Solicitor's final review and approval.
Councilor Roos makes a motion to enter into the cooperative service agreement with the United States Department of Agriculture, and I'll summarize that to deal with the darn vultures in town. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Mellon. Is there any discussion? Is there anybody here who's here because of the vultures? Yeah, okay. You don't have to raise your hand. I talked to some folks earlier in the week, so. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
That concludes my report.
All right, we'll chase those vultures away. Okay. Public safety. I move the council adopt an ordinance amending the code of the Borough of Carlisle adopted by ordinance number 2032 and thereafter amended with respect to Chapter 244 Vehicles and Traffic to remove 2 on-street handicap parking spaces at 165 West North Street and 535 West Penn Street and create 1 on-street handicap parking space at 15 McBride Avenue. Is there a second?
This is a roll call vote? Oh, second.
Well, I need a second
Sorry,
on the motion
sorry.
first.
Second,
Sorry.
yes.
Okay. Second by Councilor Roos. Call the question. Madam Secretary, the roll call, please.
Deputy Mayor Landis.
Aye.
Ms. Mellon.
Aye.
Ms. Perry.
Aye.
Ms. Roos.
Aye.
Mr. Shiles.
Aye.
Mr. Stubbe.
Aye.
Mayor Schultz.
The motion carries. I next move the council authorize the borough solicitor to draft and advertise an ordinance establishing a temporary parking ban affecting certain borough streets in conjunction with Carlisle Productions 2025 schedule of events. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Roos. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. I move the council ratify the mayor's approval of a special events application for Farmers on the Square 2025 that shall include the following enclosures and shall be contingent upon the receipt of a valid certificate of liability insurance form naming the Borough of Carlisle as an additional insured and the applicant reimbursing the borough 100% of the variable and 10% of the fixed costs associated with this event. Closures shall include the courtyard of First Presbyterian Church at High and Hanover Streets, the sidewalks of North and South Hanover Streets, and East and West High Streets 1 block from Hanover and High on Wednesdays during the months of March through October 2025 from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. The closure of Dickinson Avenue between Hanover and North Courthouse Avenue on Wednesdays during the months of March through October 2025 from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. The closure of 1 parking space on Courthouse Avenue nearest to High Street on every 3rd Wednesday of the month between the months of March through October 2025 from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Roos. I got the longest motion of the night, I think. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. That concludes my report. Public Works.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First this evening, I move that Borough Council approve the Biosolids Management Plan final report dated January 2nd, 2025. And furthermore, the Borough Council enter into an engineering services contract with Gannett Fleming Incorporated to provide design and permitting services for Phase 1B of the Biosolids Upgrade Project for the Carlisle Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant for a not-to-exceed cost of $690,000, subject to the Borough Solicitor's review and approval of the services contract.
Councilor Stubbe makes a motion to approve the Biosolids Management Plan final report dated January 2nd, 2025, and to enter an engineering services contract with Gannett Fleming for that purpose. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shiles. Any discussion?
Just to note that if anyone's fascinated with what that big number comes from, it's from our meeting last week, and you can watch it on YouTube to
Yeah.
learn about our biosolids upgrade.
Watch it in reruns.
Yes.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
Next, I move that Borough Council approve the purchase of 2 JWC Environmental Wet Well Sewage Grinders for the wastewater treatment plant from JWC Environmental of Santa Ana, California, for $46,381.44 to the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Cooperative Purchasing Program CoStars number 016-E23-282.
Councilor Stubbe makes a motion to approve the purchase of 2 JWC Environmental Wet Well Sewage Grinders for the wastewater treatment plant through CoStars. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shiles. Sorry, Stubbe, Shiles. I gotta get it straight. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. If you haven't been in the wet well, it's a pleasure.
Next, I move that Borough Council approve change order number 1 with VWR International LLC for the upgrade and installation of laboratory cabinetry, reflecting changes to the scope of work outlined in the approved contract, increasing the total contract by $6,647.06.
Councilor Stubbe makes a motion to approve change order number 1 with VWR International for the upgrade and installation of laboratory cabinetry. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shiles. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
And finally, I move that Borough Council award the unit price construction contract for the 2025 paving of local roads project to the lowest responsive bidder, Kinsley Construction LLC of York, Pennsylvania, in the amount of $442,086.45.
Councilor Stubbe makes a motion to award the unit price construction contract for the 2025 paving of local roads project to Kinsley Construction. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Shiles. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
And that concludes my report this evening.
Thank you, Mr.
And just a
Stubbe.
quick note, that last thing gave approval to fix some of the roads, and I've had a lot of folks inquiring about which roads are going to be repaved, so Stephanie will be putting that on our website. Yes.
Yep, let the paving season begin.
Yes.
Complain about the potholes and now complain about the traffic from paving. Sustainable community and economic planning, Mr. Shiles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that Borough Council may approve an extension request by BL Companies on behalf of AMG General LLC, Coarsh Grelwell, I think I'm pronouncing that right, and waive all other requirements of the borough's subdivision ordinance for the development of 202 East High Street. The new deadline shall be September 15th, 2025.
Councilor Shiles makes a motion to approve an extension request by BL Companies on behalf of AMG General LLC. I guess that's care of Arsh Girl, and waive other requirements of the borough subdivision ordinance for the development of 202 East High Street. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by the deputy mayor. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
My second agenda item for tonight is that Borough Council may to make a motion that Borough Council may approve an extension request by Barley Snyder on behalf of Carlisle Allen LLC for the development of 207 Allen Road. The new deadline shall be September 15th, 2025.
Councilor Shiles makes a motion to approve the extension request by Barley Snyder on behalf of Carlisle Allen LLC for 207 Allen Road. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Landis. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
My third agenda item for tonight is that I make a motion that Borough Council may waive the public outreach meeting and approve the proposed minor subdivision to create a lot on a parcel containing an existing single-family detached dwelling at 343 D Street.
Councilor Shiles makes a motion to waive the public outreach meeting and approve the proposed minor subdivision to create a lot on a parcel containing existing single-family detached dwelling on 343 D Street. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Deputy Mayor Landis. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
My fourth agenda item tonight is that I make a motion the Borough Council may consider approving the preliminary subdivision and land development plan for lots 9 through 13 Carlisle Auto Industries.
Councilor Childs makes a motion that council approve the preliminary subdivision and land development plan for lots 9 through 13 Carlisle Auto Industries. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by the Deputy Mayor. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Childs. Next is new business. So if you didn't think what you wanted to talk about earlier in the meeting, this is another opportunity for members of the public here with us this evening or by Zoom to make any public comment you would like to make on issues facing the borough. I see none here. Stephanie, still everybody's shy on Zoom? Okay, all right. Move on to reports from council, members of staff. Deputy Mayor Landis, you have some resolutions.
Thank you. I am trying to take the time during these reports to use my time as best as I possibly can, and with lots of things happening in the world, it does affect our residents, or our residents care deeply about some of these topics. And although there's a wide range of different things happening, these were a few that I decided to start with. So I have drafted some resolutions, and they have been sent to the other counselors for review. I'm not sure if council wants to discuss them and then make any edits, or feel comfortable with voting on them as is. We can go down the line one at a time. I'm just trying to gauge what you feel would be best as we work through.
So why don't we just kind of start there? Is there any general discussion about the resolutions and procedures, since this is the first time we're going through this? Councilor Mellon has a finger near the mic. Oh, Councilor Childs does too. Okay.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think that I assume are we starting with the one around the Save Act, or
Sure.
Okay, I just that was the first one on there. But I having read through this, I think thank you for writing this, and I think this is a really I don't know how much effect our council can have on this, but I really appreciate this, and should we just read this in its?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing to say to anyone listening is that we do not have the ability of making any movement on any of these things, but as a collective elected board council here, I think a collective voice and sending these along to our upper elected officials at the state and federal, maybe we can have a small impact, or at least be noticed more than a voicemail that's left on a line. So the first resolution, I'll just read it. This is a resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Carlisle, Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, urging state and federal elected officials to oppose the passage of the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility SAVE Act due to its potential to disenfranchise Pennsylvania voters. Whereas the right to vote is a fundamental pillar of American democracy, ensuring that all eligible citizens have the opportunity to participate in the electoral process, and whereas the U.S. House of Representatives introduced the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility SAVE Act in January 2025, which mandates that all Americans present citizenship documentation in person when registering to vote or updating their voter registration information. And whereas acceptable documentation under the SAVE Act includes a certified state-issued birth certificate or a valid U.S. passport displaying the voter's current legal name. And whereas according to the U.S. Department of State, less than half of the U.S. citizens currently hold a valid passport, leaving approximately 146 million citizens without this form of identification. And whereas while more Americans possess a birth certificate, an estimated 69 million married women nationwide who would have taken their spouse's last name face a discrepancy between their birth certificate and their current legal name. And whereas in Pennsylvania alone, approximately 2.86 million women do not have a birth certificate that matches their current legal name, potentially hindering their ability to register to vote or update their registration under the SAVE Act. And whereas the financial and logistical burdens associated with obtaining a passport or amended birth certificate effectively constitute a modern-day poll tax, disproportionately affecting rural citizens, seniors, persons with disabilities, low-income individuals, and particularly married women who have changed their last names. And whereas the SAVE Act, despite its stated intent to protect voter rights, would disenfranchise tens of millions of Americans, including millions of Pennsylvania residents, by imposing stringent documentation requirements. And whereas the Pennsylvania House of Representatives has recognized these concerns, with Representative Danielle Friel-Otten circulating a co-sponsorship memo on February 12, 2025, highlighting the potential adverse effects of the SAVE Act on Pennsylvania voters and proposing state legislation to mitigate these impacts by eliminating fees for obtaining birth certificates. And whereas accessible and equitable voting procedures is paramount to upholding the democratic process and the rights of all citizens. So now, therefore, be it resolved that the Borough Council of the Borough of Carlisle urges our state and federal elected officials to oppose the passage of the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility SAVE Act, recognizing its potential to disenfranchise a significant number of Pennsylvania voters. Be it further resolved that the Borough of Carlisle supports legislative efforts within Pennsylvania aimed at reducing barriers to obtaining necessary identification documents, thereby safeguarding the voting of all eligible residents. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be sent to the United States Representative Scott Perry, United States Senator John Fetterman, United States Senator David McCormick, Pennsylvania State Senator Greg Rothman, and Pennsylvania State Representative Barb Klein. That was the first one.
So, if I may, Mr. Mayor, so I first want to say that I completely support the ideas that you raised in this resolution, and I too oppose the passage of the SAVE Act on either the state or the federal level. What I'm not sure that the resolution is the best tool that we have in our arsenal. For me, a resolution from Borough Council just sent off to our elected officials has very little teeth. It's making a statement. It's not opening a dialogue. And what I would propose instead is that we form these as letters that we may or may not all sign on to, that we send to each of the elected officials that you name, which would allow us to open a dialogue with these officials. That allows us a better position for advocacy and to enter into a conversation. So that's, and that to a great extent goes for all three of these, not just for this one.
Is there any other? Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'll just say I hadn't thought of that. That's a good point. I think that it's important that we are sending a message that that we're residents as well. So while we're looking out for other residents, it affects all of us in some way or some shape or form. So I think that this is an important thing that we're doing, whether it be the resolution or the letter. Like I said, I think I hadn't thought about that before, but I think that's a good idea. There's something I've been asked to sign to get sent, and I'm going to. I just haven't done it yet. But I think that this is all of this, the conversation. We're at least having the conversation, and that's important. And that our constituents see that we are having these conversations and that we are standing with them. So that's all.
And I had looked up, previous resolutions we've had, and there have been some letters as well. And I guess my question, collectively, because I actually truly don't know, by doing a resolution, it goes into the public record that's accessible through our public information. But letters are often not shared out. So that was part of my interest in doing the resolutions, because they are voted on. They are actively a part of our borough history in enacted. So I mean, we've had larger resolutions that created some of our you know uh, Vision Zero, Truth and Reconciliation, but we've also used some. One was to advocate for allowing local municipalities to have their own minimum wage in Pennsylvania. So again, that was one that was used to send up to our local or our state legislatures or elected officials. We had also done one for House Bill 972, which was banning trans girls from school sports. So I guess there isn't necessarily consistency, as in my mind, as to when we use it. I think we also did the I-83 South Bridge tolling opposition resolution, and again, that was to advocate at our upper council or upper legislative elected officials. There was one that actually Mayor Schultz had sent that was just a letter from March 2022, when Badrudin Bakirovic had come and talked to us about the crisis that was happening in Bosnia. And so it was a rather lengthy letter that was sent to Casey, to me, and Harry. But again, it was about it was in during the time of with Russia's action in Ukraine. So there was other things happening. So there are, I guess that is my question. So
Why not both?
Yeah, I would say that there's inconsistency, because we've never created any guidelines, a framework for us to do these, and it's been sort of this ad hoc decision that we've made depending on what comes forth. In my mind, and why in 2022 that was a letter instead of a resolution, is there are things that are directly within our control or authority, or we want to be directly within our control or authority, and for those types of things where it's generally more appropriate, to pass a resolution. Where there's been issue advocacy, I've normally been, I'd lean toward a letter. And I think that's just kind of in my mind, how I've approached these things over the years. Not to say I haven't voted for resolutions that were probably more issue advocacy because a council member brought it forward in that way. But if we're looking at some consistency in how we approach these, that's probably where we need to start in a way, right?
Along those lines, and to the deputy mayor's point about resolutions being more public documents, is there anything that would prevent us, if we were to, do a letter to, in approving it, say that like we want it posted on the borough website or something like that? I mean, I don't know. With the resolutions, like for example, with the resolution establishing the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, or the resolution establishing the Climate Action Commission, right? To your point, those are much more like local issues, but we obviously have web pages on the borough about like the Climate Action Commission, right? And we have like link to the resolution there. I'm just curious, if we take that approach, if we can still accomplish the goal of like making them public facing documents in some way, or if that would be counterintuitive.
I think that's good. Maybe and you can certainly speak for yourself, but I'm going to sort of bring that together. And I think with Deputy Mayor Landis, what you were saying is resolutions, they're permanent parts of our record, where a letter, I don't know what there's a time period where those are kept. Keith, I don't expect that you know that off the top of your head. I know that under the guidelines, and then those are disposed of after a number of years, where resolutions are permanent parts of our historical record. Really, I got that first half right.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's nothing to say that. It was Council Perry. Maybe you said maybe why not both, or was it Council Bruce? Yeah, I knew there was someone. Yeah. Okay. I knew there was something there. There are times where we approve documents by a resolution, and so the resolution has that document attached, and you could approve a letter by resolution, and then that letter is attached, and then the letter is what goes off to representatives.
And I guess that I would take that as I completely understand what Councillor Mellon was saying, because I do like a conversation, but I do like the public record. So I mean, if it could be both, I mean, and this, you know, kind of outlines, you know, the standard information points that we really want to highlight, and you know, we can reword it into a letter to also accompany it, giving it more of a conversation starter, engaging them and allowing them to understand that we are open to discussion, because it is, the goal is to have our elected officials understand that this is something that our residents care about, are affected by, and I want to make sure that it's strong, you know, like, I mean, that because there's these are serious concerns.
To that point, would it make sense then, if we're taking this both approach, looking at the text of this resolution, for example, the last clause is, you know, resolve that a copy of this resolution be sent to list of these elected officials, instead of having that, essentially having the last clause be something to the line, like along the lines of that a letter voicing Borough Council's position on this be sent to these elected officials, right? So that we then have this for the public, you know, the historical record, but then we also have some sort of letter based off of this that we use to transmit, as opposed to just like mailing this resolution itself out. Would that accomplish both goals? I'm just putting that up.
I guess that, like, for me, like, I am attracted by the idea of putting our names behind something like a letter to our elected officials as a way to show that there is concern within our community about this issue, and that we have the weight of the borough behind us. But I also do like, and these things are very important to me. I changed my name when I got married, you know, like, and I have my feelings about the other resolutions that are to be considered as well. But I also have really big feelings about other really big things that are happening. And so, like, to which that we like draw the line as well. You know, like, truly we are living in unprecedented times once again. And you know, I would love to do another resolution about something else. And I guess I'm asking why these specific issues, why not other specific issues, as like a theoretical, not but then also, like, why then not future issues, or what is the line with then issues moving forward. And I would love there to be a process about, like, what gets a resolution, what gets a letter, what comes to borough council, what, you know, what type of acknowledgement do we need from the community to bring a resolution to borough council. So I would love to just see like a framework for those things. I'm very supportive of the issues that are in front of me in these resolutions. I would just love to then know, like, what the process looks like moving forward, and how these things then like fit into that process, if I'm not overstepping.
I would also add, I mean, it hasn't been 2 months yet, and we've already got 3 issues here that some of us feel are resolution worthy. And I'm just worried that if we come up with a resolution every time someone in federal government or someone in state government says something that we disagree with, that we're going to take away our time from doing the actual work that our citizens elected us here to do. So yeah, a framework could be helpful, I think. Yeah.
I mean, my only thing to say to counter that is, you know, we are taking it at the end of our meeting. We've prioritized our local borough government work. I do apologize to our staff who are staying here later for our own discussion, but, you know, in the 8 years that I've been here, I haven't used this time to really make this period of time at the end of our meeting super impactful, kind of saying what I did or whatever. but it is unprecedented times, and so I think that this is a time for us to take a little extra. And to answer your question, I mean, I try to acknowledge that these are just three, right? There could have been anything. Partly the one for Medicaid was because our local EMS and health advocacy groups brought up local connections and I also had heard some from the SAVE Act, and a group came to us asking for a resolution for a ceasefire in September, and we did not actually address it. And as this came up, and those folks are still concerned at the state of Gaza, so that is why I thought it was a very clean and straightforward resolution, because there was a lot of questions about the other ones, but it's simply saying we should not colonize that country. So that was what the reason why that one, and I understand, it might seem distant, but that's why that one is one that I brought forward, because I felt like it was our job to at least acknowledge that those folks had come and to answer the question. Like, sometimes this has been how we end up with these resolutions. Someone brings it to us, and I don't usually, even though Jeff writes these resolutions and things for the state, I don't do that. And so I'm actually very uncomfortable with the, kind of me doing this, because I don't do this for a living, but I do care very deeply, and I want to make sure that in these unprecedented times, I'm taking the time to highlight some things that I think could be that they are a very big concern. So I understand the process, and I'm for it, but I don't actually know what it would look like. And hopefully, like, if we would have a process, there would be a little bit more of a flow instead of this kind of, I don't know, what are we doing effect, which I take that as my own issue. But that's my.
There's silence, so I feel like I need to fill it. So I'm not sure how we're proceeding here. I mean, I agree that we need some sort of framework. I also appreciate that Deputy Mayor Landis took the time to thoughtfully put these issues together and bring them forward tonight. So just trying to work through in my head where we are right now. How strong the feelings are to have a framework before we move ahead on this, and or do we move ahead on what we have in front of us, maybe make some modifications, and then deal with the framework next? Go ahead, please, yes.
Sure. I mean, personally, I would be comfortable with moving forward with these resolutions that the deputy mayor has brought forward this evening, and then moving forward beyond that, putting together some sort of framework as to how we address this, because to the point that you brought up, as well as the deputy mayor, we do have a precedent for doing these type of resolutions in the past. So I wouldn't say that this is out of the norm for us, but it has just kind of been an ad hoc basis as to how we address it. So I would be comfortable with moving forward with these this evening, and then after that, putting together some sort of framework as to how we approach these going into the future.
I agree with Jeff.
Do we want to modify the last paragraph to make it a letter that's going out instead of the resolution?
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a modification consistent with that, getting head nods. Are we all on the same page with that?
Yes.
Councilman Mellon's being
Yeah.
stoked. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we're all on the same page with that.
So to that point, then we could maybe have the last clause just say, be it further resolved that a letter conveying Borough Council's position be sent to United States the officials. Essentially removing, copy of this resolution, replacing it with letter conveying Borough Council's position. Would that work?
Yeah.
The deputy mayor takes that as a friendly amendment to all the resolutions.
That's
okay.
great.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Then next we can tackle each of these resolutions. So if you want to make motions to approve.
So I will make the motion that Borough Council adopt a resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Carlisle, Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, urging state and federal elected officials to oppose the passage of the Safeguard American Voter Eligibility SAVE Act due to its potential to disenfranchise Pennsylvania voters.
There's a motion by the Deputy Mayor to approve resolution regarding the SAVE Act. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Council Perry. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
My second item, I make the motion that Borough Council adopt a resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Carlisle, Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, urging state and federal elected officials to oppose any cuts to Medicaid funding.
Deputy Mayor makes a motion to adopt the resolution addressing cuts in Medicaid funding. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Council Roos. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The motion carries.
And my last motion, I make the motion that Borough Council adopt a resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Carlisle, Cumberland County, Pennsylvania, condemning and opposing any proposal or action by the United States to take over the Gaza Strip.
Deputy Mayor makes a motion to adopt a resolution addressing any proposal or action by the United States to take over the Gaza Strip. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Perry. Any discussion?
So when we brought up the first resolution regarding ceasefire, I think we had a discussion about it, and what we decided at that point was that we would consider revoting on it. And I said at that time I would consider voting on a resolution once we had a discussion with the citizens of Carlisle regarding their thoughts, because anything to do with Gaza and Israel right now is a very fraught issue. And we have not done that. So for this one, I'm not comfortable voting on this one at this time.
Okay. Any other comments? Oh, you're going for okay. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I sent some potential additions to this last minute, and I guess I would just kind of be interested in. I know it was very, very last minute, but I would be interested in hearing other counselors' opinion on it at a later date. I'm not sort of married to any of the verbiage I used, but I think I do think that there is, I tried to look at it in a really objective way and not simply just, what is happening right now at this moment, because there is, a very a recent history of sort of what has happened in Gaza, and I think we should acknowledge some of the harms, the specifics of the harms that have been inflicted on both Israelis and Palestinians, and also understand or at least discuss our role in that as U.S. citizens, because we're not really. We are neutral actors in that. So, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Is there anybody else? Go ahead.
Sorry, I am thinking of this now, and it probably would have been beneficial for the last resolution as well. But because we have these resolutions in front of us, but not everybody here does, could we just read the text of them aloud? I don't know if you want to do that, Deputy Mayor, since you wrote them, but I just think it might be helpful to kind of vocalize
definitely
what they actually say, both for the last one and this one. My apologies for not saying that about the last one before
I
we
thought
actually
about it
voted
too,
on
and yes. So I'll do this one since that's what we're working on now. Resolution of the Borough Council of the Borough of Carlisle, condemning and opposing any proposal or action by the United States to take over the Gaza Strip. Whereas on January 19, 2025, a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas took effect, and the conflict that began in October 2023, and whereas at a news conference on February 4th, 2025, United States President Donald Trump stated the U.S. will take over the Gaza Strip and we will do a job with it too, we'll own it. I do see a long-term ownership position. And whereas on February 24th, 2025, President Trump further stated that Palestinians would have no right to return, under his plan effectively denying displaced Palestinians the ability to reclaim their homes and lands, exacerbating humanitarian concerns and contravening international law. And whereas on February 25th, 2025, an artificial intelligence generated video shared by President Trump's campaign depicts a U.S. controlled Gaza transformed into a development project, raising concerns about the erasure of Palestinian identity and the imposition of external governance without the consent of the Palestinian people. And whereas President Trump's comments raised significant concerns about sovereignty, international stability, and the welfare of the Palestinian people, and whereas United States military intervention or occupation of the Gaza Strip would violate the fundamental right of Palestinians to self-governance and could escalate tensions in an already volatile region, endangering both civilians and global security, and whereas the values of the Borough of Carlisle reflect a commitment to peace, justice, and respect for all peoples, regardless of nationality or background. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Borough of Carlisle condemns and opposes any proposal or action by the United States to take over the Gaza Strip or impose governance without the consent of the Palestinian people. And be it further resolved that the Borough of Carlisle stands firmly in support of human rights, self-determination, and the principles of international law. And be it further resolved that the Borough of Carlisle rejects policies that promote imperialism, occupation, and unilateral military action that disregards the will of the people directly affected. Be it further resolved that the Borough of Carlisle recognizes the importance of peaceful diplomatic solutions, humanitarian aid, and respect for international law in resolving conflicts. And be it further resolved that the Borough of Carlisle urges elected officials at the federal level to oppose any military intervention or occupation of the Gaza Strip and to instead advocate for diplomatic and humanitarian efforts. And be it further resolved that the Borough of Carlisle calls on the federal government to prioritize peaceful resolutions, support human rights, and work toward a just and lasting peace in the region. Do you want me to do the other one too at this point?
Yeah.
Sure.
Which
This
one
one's
do
the
we got?
shortest,
Medicaid?
actually,
Yeah.
I think. And this is the resolution for Medicaid to oppose any cuts to Medicaid, whereas Medicaid provides essential health coverage to over 3 million Pennsylvanians, including low-income individuals, children, pregnant women, elderly adults, and people with disabilities. And whereas proposed federal budget cuts to Medicaid threaten to reduce access to vital health services for these vulnerable populations. And whereas the Partnership for Better Health serving Cumberland County has reported that such cuts could lead to increased uncompensated care, strain local health resources, and negatively impact public health outcomes. And whereas reductions in Medicaid funding would jeopardize the ability of emergency medical service providers like Cumberland Goodwill EMS to provide timely and effective emergency care, as a significant portion of their reimbursements come from Medicaid. And whereas 18% of Cumberland County adults over the age of 21 and 30% of Cumberland County youth under the age of 21 currently rely on Medicaid, highlighting the critical role this program plays in ensuring healthcare access for our community. And whereas the health and well-being of our residents are of utmost importance in ensuring adequate funding for Medicaid is essential to maintaining the health infrastructure of Carlisle and Cumberland County. Therefore, be it resolved that the Borough Council of the Borough of Carlisle urges our state and federal elected officials to oppose any cuts to Medicaid funding and to advocate for policies that protect and strengthen this vital program. And be it further resolved that the Borough of Carlisle stands in solidarity with our healthcare providers and first responders, recognizing that adequate Medicaid funding is critical to their ability to serve our community effectively.
Thank you. I think we were on the resolution related to Gaza. Councilor Nolan made some comments. Councilor Childs, I know you had mentioned too that you had sent out some thoughts on this kind of late in the day, and I know I told you I didn't have a chance to really look over it. I'm
I
not
can
sure
go
everybody
over
was
them,
super-
just sort of, and I feel like it's not an exhaustive list. Just trying to kind of, so I mean, I agree with everything on the resolution. I just thought that there were some things that we might consider adding. And as I said, I'm not sort of like wed to any of these things. It's not a hill I'm willing to die on, but I think I wouldn't feel right if we didn't at least deliberate, including them. And so, and I think going back to sort of, what is the kind of point in us passing this resolution beyond just sort of condemning something publicly, and trying to sort of like look at like what else how else can we effectively advocate for this? And so I just kind of, and some things kind of feel like we're, taking a squirt gun to the sun, to try and extinguish it. And that's kind of like, maybe just all we can do. But I'll just kind of go over, pressing federal legislators to incorporate the United States into the Rome Statute, which is the statute that countries follow that makes them party to the International Criminal Court. I think, and so I think that sort of like is an important tool to not only just not for this situation, but also to think about like how that could potentially protect us in the future, and how we're not, this like unilateral world power anymore, and that we should really kind of cooperate with other countries as best we can. And the reason I sort of bring that up, sorry, I have all this written down on my phone. So what I wrote is, whereas the United States has repeatedly opposed the International Criminal Court voting against the Rome Statute, be it resolved that Carlisle Borough Council encourages our federal legislators to pass legislation making the United States party to the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court. Also, acknowledging that war crimes and crimes against humanity have been perpetrated by both Hamas and Israel, the Israeli government, as found by the International Criminal Court. And I put a link to the findings from the court. This is from July 2024 and pertains to all the territories within Palestine, whereas the International Criminal Court has found in July 2024 that Israel's continued presence in the occupied Palestinian territory is unlawful, that the state of Israel is under an obligation to bring an end its unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory as rapidly as possible, that the state of Israel is under an obligation to cease immediately all new settlement activities and evacuate all settlers from the occupied Palestinian territory, that the state of Israel has the obligation to make reparation for the damage caused to all natural or legal persons concerned in the occupied Palestinian territory, that all states are under an obligation not to recognize as the legal situation arising from the unlawful presence of the state of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territories, and not to render aid or assistance in maintaining the situation created by the continued presence of the state of Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory. And then whereas the International Court has issued warrants of arrest for Mohammed Diab Ibrahim al-Masari for the crimes against humanity of murder, extermination, torture, rape, and other forms of sexual violence, as well as the war crime of murder, cruel treatment, torture, taking hostages, outrages upon personal dignity, and rape and other forms of sexual violence committed on the territory of the State of Israel and the State of Palestine. Whereas the International Criminal Court has issued warrants for arrest for Mr. Benjamin Netanyahu, Mr. Yoav Gallant, are suspected of war crimes of starvation as a method of warfare, and of intentionally directing an attack against the civilian population, and the crimes against humanity of murder, persecution, and other inhumane acts. These are just taken directly from the International Criminal Court's documents, kind of condensed, but nothing's really been taken out. We have federal legislation called the Leahy Act, named for Patrick Leahy, which prohibits the disbursement of military aid to countries that have committed human rights violations, whereas continuing military aid to Israel would be in violation of the Leahy Act. And, I think this is something where I think constantly this act comes up when we're offering, to me, the harm in, honestly, all of this is that, and I think as Councilor Mellon may have pointed out, this is not an isolated incident where this has happened, where the United States has supplied aid to countries that are in violation of human rights. So I think, to me, it feels like we should be writing resolutions for all of those. But this was what came before us. And I think at the very least, sort of thinking, how should that be used as, at the very least, leverage, in enforcing peace and sort of encouraging peace. And then, sorry, I got locked up on the phone. Also acknowledging the sort of number of victims in these attacks. The October 7th attacks resulted in the brutal killing of 1,139 people, the kidnapping and hostage taking of 250 people, and dozens of cases of reported rape and sexual acts within Israel. And also addressing that the Israeli military invasion of Gaza has resulted in 64,260 deaths from traumatic injury between October 7th and June 30th, October 7th, 2023 and June 30th, 2024, 59% of whom were women, children, and elderly people. We need to acknowledge our role in this. I think, or at least I feel that way. I feel that we need to acknowledge our role in that. The United States has been funding this conflict, and it's sort of like how its role in sort of this being a really asymmetrical war. We have, I think Israel is a very close ally of the United States, and that's sort of, we've been a very close ally of them since their inception, since their creation. We've given them $317 billion in aid since 1946. That's more than any other country. And we've given $21 billion in military aid since October 7th. And that's had that has been in the form of bombs that have, we've witnessed what that has caused. And so I think that's sort of what I was saying earlier on, whereas we're not necessarily neutral in this as much as we would like to be. I also, in searching for anti-war initiatives that we could effectively advocate for, there is this state initiative that is, it's referred to as the Defend the Guard Act, and it's kind of like, it recently passed the Virginia State House of Delegates unanimously, and it is intended to reinforce congressional power in terms of declaring war, in terms of who declares war, and it's kind of supported by a smattering of groups. Anybody can go online and read about it. There are a lot of conservative organizations encouraging it, but I think we could, if we wanted to, we could advocate it for it at the state level. And what it essentially does is it says that the president cannot deploy the state National Guard without a declaration of war by Congress to a foreign theater. And I think there's been multiple it hasn't passed any state legislatures yet, so but I would encourage other counselors to take a look. I'm for it essentially because to me I see it as a way to prevent more, and as a sort of roadblock for that. And I think if we can encourage for that, I think it's easier for us to encourage things at the state level than it is for us to make any movement at the federal level. So that's really all.
Thank you, Mitch. That was super informative.
Mhm.
And
If anybody just tuned in, it's not the Senate Subcommittee on
I
Foreign
know,
Relations.
but I appreciate that we took the time to even say it out loud, sitting up here. So I appreciate just your research and bringing those other elements to the discussion. I'm fine with not voting on this tonight and us revisiting because it's not that there's work to be done, and we can engage other folks as well. But like I said, this was my first go at it. I am glad that we were able to get through the other two though, because the budget will have to get coordinated for Medicaid, and there's still a chance on changes to that. So I appreciate that. Does that suit? Does that work?
Okay, so we'll hold off on this one. Maybe it comes back in another form. It sounds like, and maybe with some additional, or I shouldn't say additional engagement, some engagement. You're right.
I'd like to hear some engagement. I mean, what Mitch, you excuse me, Counselor Childs, you said that this is the one that was brought to us, and so this is the one that's up. But the resolution as presented here is not actually the resolution that was brought to us in the fall. Both of them are very different from what you just added, and so I would like to hear from the citizens of Carlisle about what they want us to do here. So.
Can I just chime in too? Thank you, Mitch, for all that research. However, that has also moved me further away from interest in adopting the resolution, because I'm interested in a resolution that speaks to the different values and things that we have all agreed to, and tying them to the truth and reconciliation resolution that we made. And so I acknowledge that we have contributed to a situation that has been not good for a whole bunch of people in a gigantic way. But I also wanted to make sure that we're putting our perspective on it in a way that aligns with the values that we have already considered, and to stand behind those things. So while again I appreciate your research, I would like it to be more from a Carlisle voice that says we have agreed to these things, and this is using that framework to provide our perspective on this particular situation.
Sure. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, no, I wrote it. I wasn't intending for it to be its own resolution. More of just are these things we might consider adding to a resolution? But I don't expect us to include them all. But I felt the need to bring them forward. So.
Okay, so we'll hold off on that. I guess we're going to have some future discussion on how we would engage in the issue and what form that one comes in. Okay. Thank you all.
Thanks.
And thank you again, Deputy Mayor Landis. This was we put this under our the solicit.
That's okay. No, I just wanted to point out, I believe there was a motion and a second that still remains on the table.
Oh, there was. Yeah.
Oh,
I completely forgot that there was.
For the Medicaid one? Oh, okay. Okay. So what do we do now?
So I make a motion that we table the prior item. Is there a second?
Second.
So I'll take a second from Councilor Bruce. I'll call the question. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion carries.
Thanks for keeping us legal.
Thank you, Solicitor Brennan. Okay. reports from council members and staff. We've all said a lot tonight, but is there anything else anybody would like to say? Council Bruce, Council Mallon, Council Stubbe. I just have to announce that we will be having an executive session following this meeting to discuss legal matter with our solicitor that's subject to attorney-client privilege. Is there anything Deputy Mayor would like to add?
There is something really quick that I want to add. Last Friday, Chief and I were at an event at New Life Community Church, and we had a woman who came up and started a conversation with us, but she led that conversation with saying that the Carlisle police were really good to her, and she really appreciated how they treated her and the work that they did for her. And I just wanted to publicly acknowledge that, because that's always nice to hear. You know, when you see everything else and we say all this, when you hear the things, it's nice to hear that someone felt seen and heard and not put off. She didn't say those words, but she was appreciative of how they treated her. And so I just wanted to say that and acknowledge that in front of Chief.
Take those compliments when we can get them, right, Chief? Council Shiles. No.
Nothing.
Borough Manager Armstrong, anything? I'm not
I
going
do
to
have a
ask.
quick something from Miss Wanda. She had to leave, but she wanted everyone to remind everyone of the return of the Amani Festival on the 29th at the Expo Center.
Great. Thanks, Steph. It's March 29th. That's right.
29th. Yes, March 29th.
Amani's coming back and trying to renew itself. So I hope everybody attends.
Also, Mr. Mayor, if everyone's awake at 2:30 in the morning, there's a lunar eclipse tonight. So go out and look at that.
All right. Thank you. We are adjourned.